Hello and welcome. This is NTA Tuesday Live, and I'm Cyril Stober. In just a few days' time, Nigerians will approach the polling units across the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory to decide those who would govern the country for the next 4 years. Well, as we are already aware, the Independent National Electoral Commission and other key players in the management of the nation's electoral process are optimistic that the outcome of the exercise will be a product of inclusivity, credibility, and transparency through massive deployment of digital infrastructure. Now, the seventh circle of elections in the history of the nation's fourth republic will be guiding our discussion tonight on NTA Tuesday Live. It is safeguarding the electoral process. Now, but before we go into the discussion, let's get to see this report by our INEC correspondent, Mie Ogidi.
Nigerians will determine who becomes whatever at whatever level. You have seen the supervisory presiding officers. This is an affirmation of the Commission's readiness for the elections. I thank you very much as always.
If INEC keeps to her promise, civil society organizations and the media for partnership,
announcing the arrival of the governor of the Central Bank,
then shuttling CBN, NNPC, and security chiefs for assurances of cash and fuel availability as well as safety.
2023 elections will go on in a climate devoid, bereft of rancor. The security agencies have done a lot in the last couple of months to put things in place.
We regard the INEC project as at a topmost or an urgent national assignment. It cannot fail, and the central bank would not allow itself either to be used or itself to central bank to be seen as an agent that frustrated a positive outcome of that election.
With a bank of promises and in-house preparations and logistics, INEC proceeds to the Federal Executive Council and the National Council of States and says we are good to go.
We took members of council through all the preparations that we have put in place for the election and the few challenges that we are facing and the steps that we have taken to address those challenges. So be rest assured that the election will hold as scheduled.
Few days after that, cleansing of some sort carried out on polling units. 240 polling units removed.
No new registrants choose the polling units and no voters indicated interest to transfer to them during the last continuous voter registration exercise, mainly for security reasons. Election will not hold in these polling units, and we have made the details of these polling units available to all political parties.
Clarification made, a trip to Government Secondary School Gariki, where ad hoc staff are undergoing training. National Collation Center, Situation Room ready at the International Conference Center, Abuja.
And the outcome of that process for presidential election will be compiled here, and the choice made by Nigerians for the next president of the country will also be announced at this venue.
And observers for the election given a directive to respect the sovereignty of Nigeria.
You are by definition observers. Do not interfere with the process or show partisanship.
Mahmoud is confident and the electorate counts on the boldness. The PVC waiting patiently to have a feel of the beavers on February 25 and March 11, 2023. Mie Ogidi.
All right, that report sets the tone for tonight's discussion. Let's start off by introducing our guests. We like to welcome to this program DIG Adeyinka Adeleke, MNI, is Deputy Inspector General Operations of the Nigeria Police Force. Thanks for being with us here tonight.
Good evening, Nigerians.
We're joined by Victor Aluko, who is Director of Voter Education and Publicity of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. Thanks for being here tonight.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Let me also introduce Cynthia Mbamalu, Director of Programs, Yaga Africa. Thanks for being here.
Good evening.
And we're also joined tonight by Dr. Abdurrahman Habu Hamisu, a Public Affairs Analyst. Good to see you tonight.
And a pleasure, sir. Good evening.
All right. Well, as you know, at the appropriate time, you can be part of the discussion in the studio. But we'll remind you of the procedure and the process when we get there. For now, let's start off and begin to look at how the electoral process can be safeguarded. And that's the crux of the matter tonight on NTA Tuesday Live. We like to start off our discussion by first sampling just how ready we are with the electoral management body and just how far we've gone, because it's just a few days to go. And let's start off now with the Director of Voter Education and Publicity of INEC, Victor Aluku.
Thank you.
How are we doing?
Fine. I can say categorically that INEC is ready for the elections. Out of 14 items we needed to accomplish when we released the timetable and schedule of activities, we have accomplished 12 out of 14. The remaining 2 are things we'll accomplish between now and Saturday. And so we can say that we are almost 100% ready. We have all our equipment on ground, sensitive and non-sensitive materials. We have deployed all our non-sensitive materials. We are deploying the sensitive materials. We've completed all the training for election officials, presiding officers, assistant presiding officers, collation officers at various levels. We've done all our training. We are deploying even our permanent staff who will supervise the activities at all levels. We have accredited official election observers, and we briefed them today. We have accredited the media and journalists that will cover the elections, and we are giving them accreditation tags. We're doing all we should do before a major general election like this. And apart from that, our voter education activities have been very successful. We have been supported so much by stakeholders and the media. And we believe Nigerians are also psychologically and physically ready. The security agencies have given us assurances that they will secure every Nigerian, that they will secure all our officials' materials and equipment, and we are ready to go.
Good. You talked about INEC, preparations. You talked about Nigerians being ready and are well aware of what's happening, and of course the security agencies. What assurances do you have from the politicians?
Well, we believe the politicians should be ready too. After all, they're the ones that are fielding candidates. INEC does not field candidates. All we do is to provide a platform for Nigerians to vote for leaders of their choice. So the politicians who will field the candidates, who will put people in positions of leadership, I believe they are ready to. After all, we'll be holding meetings with leaders of the political parties, and they are the ones who conducted their primaries successfully. They gave us a list of their candidates, and we printed ballot papers, we printed result sheets reflecting the parties that are contesting in various locations in the country. With what the political parties and the politicians that manage political parties have done, we believe they are ready to. Okay. And we hope that they will not let us down.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll return to so many other issues as we go on. But let's come to DIG Operations, Adeyinka Adeleke MNI, by the way, who in the last 24 hours was decorated as the... So I suppose it's in order to say congratulations on this appointment.
Thank you, sir.
So, I am sure that one of the charges you got from the Inspector General was that you should, as they say, hit the ground running. So tell us, how safe should Nigerians feel as they approach Saturday's election?
Nigerians should feel very safe
The way we looked at the election is the pre-election period, the election itself, and the after-election period. Culminating from the primaries, which we have been able to manage properly, we went into the campaign, which is almost over now, and we've done all this successfully. And there are plans on ground to ensure that on the election day, Nigerians will be able to come out and vote for the persons of their choice. But all I need to say is to employ Nigerians too to be law-abiding, to support us so that we can support them effectively.
Fair enough. And law-abiding Nigerian citizens, feel free to go out and vote. So what would you say to those who are thinking of fomenting any form of trouble whatsoever or trying to throw a spanner in the works during these elections?
When we did an assessment of this election, we realized that we are having two tasks to accomplish. One, that is, people are bent on not having this election. And secondly, the people that are ready for the election who must be secured, who must be provided with security to ensure that the election goes on. We've been able to stabilize the environment. We've been able to checkmate them, and people can attest to it that we are good to go. And I'm assuring Nigerians that on the election day, they should come out confidently and exercise their franchise.
All right. Thank you. We'll examine some of the other issues, but let's go on to Cynthia Mbamalu. Again, we'll put the same question to you. In the build-up to this coming election, we've seen a lot happening. As we approach the election proper, what are your thoughts and what have you seen in terms of how prepared, how aware the citizenry are, and security generally, and of course, the Electoral Management Authority that is always under scrutiny? What are your thoughts on these?
Well, I think my first thought is that every elections, or rather successful elections, are dependent on the work of several stakeholders. It's not just about the Electoral Commission alone. It's about the security. It's about the political parties who are the major contenders. It's also about the people. And so when we think around the kind of election we want as a people, the level of transparency we believe we want, we must also realize that everyone has a role to play to achieve that success. And I wanted to begin from that because when we think around the planning towards the elections, what are the things to look at for, the factors or indicators to help us assess how prepared we are? I think INEC has told us that out of the 14 activities in this schedule of activities for the elections, 12 have been successfully implemented, and the other 2 would be implemented in a couple of days. So that is from the Electoral Commission's point of view. As a Nigerian citizen, the question would be to the Electoral Commission, in the coming days, are there possible challenges that you think could affect the planning towards that? Because I believe there's a lot of people who are looking at factors that we did not think of before. And beyond security, could the issues around the access of Naira currency, could it also affect the deployment? So there's that part, because it's a challenge on logistics if people cannot access cash to do that. So I think there's that part. But for security, I believe that the IG had given the statement and shared the deployment plan. And I love the fact that that plan was shared, indicating that beyond the police, sister agencies would also be deploying together. And we're expecting to see an average of about 2 police or 2 security personnel at the polling unit. So there is that part. And I think for a lot of voters, what they would be looking out for is that in the coming days, the elections, that the security provide information around how to make reports if you think of incidents of violence coming, because that opportunity for free communication with the security agencies, I think it would inspire confidence. So providing that channel of communication for people to reach out to the security to make their reports. Because at this point, what we're doing is whatever we hear from the security, we hold on to them. Whatever INEC says to us, we hold on to them. But I want to talk more around the people, because most times we think it's about just INEC and about security. And I believe for these elections, every one of us has some level of responsibility to ensure the process is credible. And what should citizens be looking out for these elections? First, we need to engage the process from an informed point of view. What does the law say about the process? Do we understand the guidelines? Have we all identified our polling unit? Because INEC has said some people have moved to new polling units. So on elections day, you wouldn't say, oh, INEC, but there's been information from now, before the election. So as voters too, we also need to take that responsibility. What do we need to know about the elections? Have we identified where we're going to vote? Do we understand the process? Can we also commit to ensure compliance? Because I talk about this in previous elections, we've had instances where communities would connive and say, we don't want to use the technology deployed by INEC, keep it aside, we don't want to follow due process, we want to do it the way we want. But to make the process accountable, everyone has a responsibility. And I think for these elections to be successful, we need, as a people, we need to be informed, but we also need to exercise vigilance over the process and ensure compliance to the process with the rules and the regulations guiding the process. And the last point for me are the actors, the political parties. Is a lot more responsibilities on them. Why? INEC may do a good job, security may do good work with deployment, but if the political class, if the candidates and the parties in their rhetorics are promoting violent conversation or hate speech, it would affect the work that has been done, because if there is violence, it affects the credibility of the process. If political parties are not educating their followers on, one, how elections are won, two, what you need to know, if they're not investing in voter education, it also affects the quality of participation. And if political parties do not commit to play by the rules of the game, it will also affect the credibility of the process, which is why I said for them, is a lot more responsibility. And I'm glad there's a peace accord that they'll be signing. I'm hoping parties would adhere to the rules of this peace accord and promote peaceful conduct.
And it is on that note I'll take it up with Dr. Abdurrahman Hamisu to start off from that angle. Although you will talk about what INEC has been able to do and the deployment of security agencies, as you have observed, but I'd like you to start from the premise of the political actors themselves, as they refer to them, the gladiators. What have you seen? And I want you to have at the back of your mind the build-up to this. It's just a few days. What have you seen from the political elite, the political parties, the contestants themselves?
Yeah. Well, let me begin this way. It is unfortunate that we always have to talk about preparedness when we're going into election. If we're transiting, say, from military dictatorship to democracy, we would have said, okay, we need to do a lot of work because people are not used to the democratic process. But this is almost 24 years of uninterrupted democracy. Starting from 2007, when INEC began the process of reform, a lot has been done. And this has made our electoral process to become highly complex, watertight, in a bid to forestall raging violence. At the end of it all, we end up making the process more cumbersome and challenging. Because if, for instance, democracy is all about going out there to vote peacefully, it's about peaceful conduct, about peaceful process of selecting your representative without any coercion whatsoever, then I can sit in the comfort of my room to vote. The question of there will be rigging will not be there because there will be trust. And everybody can sit anywhere. But because our politicians have not even convinced us, it has always been our politician versus other agencies of government that ought to collaborate to deliver credible election. So our politicians have never for once swore an oath to say, we will not rig election, we will not form in trouble. It all depends on the rule. For instance, previously, there was this INEC guideline. Part of it was that any polling unit or polling point where there is altercation or fighting, that very particular voting unit is cancelled. Do you know what the politicians resorted to doing? The polling unit where the highest votes are targeted, and they deploy violence there to ensure that INEC automatically cancels. So this brings us to our capacity to abuse rules, our capacity to abuse processes, our capacity to do a lot of things that are unthinkable. And somebody said, we are not respected because some of the things that you feel a normal human being will not do. I bet you our politicians will do it in Nigeria because they believe that nothing will happen. And that is why even the NGOs, one of the recommendations of Uwais committee that rang bell was the establishment of tribunal to try or electoral offenders. And that died. It was something that we really wanted because people are tired of people having to do things. And that is why if you go to our literatures, you will see people who tell you that Nigerian politicians have learned nothing, they've forgotten nothing. And the way they continue to practice politics in the First Republic, that is how they want to practice politics in the 21st century. But all of these are dying down because INEC is a step ahead of them by way of innovation, so that anytime, like the card reader, we all know what used to happen. She mentioned it. Some communities will tell you they don't want to use the card reader because they've already planned to give their vote to a particular party. So if you say they should use the card reader, it means that you are liberating people from the community gang up to say this is the party we are going to vote. And like the beavers now, it's a game changer too. So as INEC continue to innovate, they continue. But overall, I want to say that if you watch critically and observe what used to happen before, in terms of the kind of language that is deployed when we are going towards election. You remember in this country, a party will tell you we're a moving train. If you stand on a track, we'll crush you. It's either you jump in or we'll crush you or we are going to fire from all our 6 cylinders. All of those rhetorics are beginning to die down. The shenanigans, the alibi that Nigerian politicians usually bring forward to project themselves so that by the time they do the unthinkable and they win election, they will say it is mudslide or it's landslide. Those are dying down because the reality is before them now. And that is why the issue of vote buying is taking precedence over preparation to use thugs, because whatever you do now, if you are not accredited using the beavers, it's useless with the judgment coming from Oshun. So the concentration now is what can we do to win elections? So they know that these rhetorics will not help them, and that is why even attacks on themselves are reduced. And then the campaign is taking another dimension. You find the candidate moving around the country. In fact, if you see some of their jeeps, you think they are coming from hell. They've gone to places that they've never gone to before in the last 8 years because they knew that, look, it's about the vote. It's not about rhetorics, and violence will never help anybody. So if you snatch ballot box, you are just wasting your time. So that is really assisting the system. It's not because Nigerian politicians have changed. No. It's because INEC and the security agencies are making things very difficult for Nigerian politicians.
All right, so it's a good thing, but let's return to the INEC director at this point in time. And one of our discussants mentioned something which is on the front burner in virtually every part of this country today: cash. INEC made its submissions that it would require cash to prosecute this election.
Yes.
What's the update on that?
Well, at this point, I can say we, as a commission, we are grateful to the central bank, grateful to the governor of the central bank, who assured us when the chairman of INEC with his commissioners visited Central Bank some 3 weeks ago to discuss this matter with him, and the need for us to have some level of cash, especially for use at the grassroots. There are certain activities that we actually need to use cash for. And of course, the Central Bank governor showed a lot of understanding, made promises. And I can say here that he has actually fulfilled those promises. The commission, as at now, we do not lack cash to be able to prosecute those activities at the lower levels for the presidential and National Assembly election. Okay. The Central Bank has fulfilled its promise, and we're grateful for it.
So for the conspiracy theorists who said, the cash squeeze is another way to make sure that the elections don't hold, since INEC will have nothing to carry on some of those activities. So it's just gone up in smoke, really.
INEC is not encumbered in any way.
All right. Well, back to the issue of security, and in the build-up to the elections, and we've seen some parts of the country, witness heightened violence, destruction of INEC facilities, and of late, even in the social media, some people have even gone as far as issuing threats to disrupt the process. Yes, the police being the lead agency in security, especially at this point in time, they've deployed in the past elections and shown how they can carry on and manage situations. But many Nigerians would say these were mostly in off-cycle elections. Now you're dealing with the entire country, 700 plus local governments with polling units spread across. Can you effectively manage this?
We can. I'll be bold to say that we can. I told you earlier on that when we assessed the pre-political activity period, we realized that there were some elements, we can't call them politicians, they were not interested in the election itself. There are people going around and saying elections will not take place in their places. So we segmented this differently from our plan for the election. These were elements that we had to work on to ensure that those areas are peaceful and peaceful enough for credible elections to take place. Then for the election itself, like I told you, we had a good primary, devoid of rancor, at least if you want to score it. Then the campaigns we'll be having, it cannot be 100%, so to say. And I think we should score our campaigns well. Left for me, with what I've seen, I give credit to the people, I give credit to INEC, I give credit to the security agencies. But what we are still insisting is that those people who are not politicians, those who are not interested in participating, should sit at home. They should not deliberately upset what we are doing. And on our own part, like I said, and with the assistance of sister agencies, and you've seen our collaboration with the Nigerian Army in all those restive areas that we have been doing fine.
Okay. Still talking about the people and the main characters, those who are running for office. There's another angle that many Nigerians have been considering, and that's talking about results emanating from elections. It's been known in the past that hardly would you have the results from the polls that will go down well. It's usually, if I lose, I have been manipulated out. if you win, oh well, the people have spoken and their will has to be obeyed. Has anything changed about that? Because we still find that even at the last minute, we'll come to INEC and find out the numerous cases that are in court and how candidates are still being upturned even at the 11th hour. Have we learned anything? Because Abu Habisu says it would seem that the politicians have not really learned anything or forgotten anything. And the only challenge, the additional challenge they have now is that INEC seems to be one step ahead of them.
Yeah, when we think around our political class and the politicians, honestly, sometimes it baffles me because political parties are important institutions in every democracy. In fact, they champion the journey to democracy, the growth in the democratic space or our democratic journey. Ordinarily, they are the ones to speak for the upholding of democratic principles and values. But we're yet to get to that point where our parties would believe or would see themselves as active players in building our democracy, which is why when it comes to the elections, they engage the elections from a transactional point of view. So for them is, what is the need for me? If I'm putting in this much, then it's a do or die affair. And I must do whatever I can to get it because I've put in this much. Rather than we're here to serve. And if the people choose us, then we serve them. If they don't choose us, then we wait and support whoever they choose or keep demanding for accountability. And that is where we have this dichotomy of ideas when it comes to engaging the space. So our politicians have not really learned, not because they do not see the progress in the space, but because if you don't change your mindset on how you engage the system, no matter the progressive innovation or what have been introduced, you would still struggle with it, which is where we are. That while we have reviews in the law that has introduced things like the BVAS technology and actually the INEC result portal, which I'll talk about because I think voters need to understand that now the power is with the people and not necessarily with the politicians when it comes to voting. But the thing is, the political parties, what we're seeing is when you introduce something, like Hamisu said, when you introduce something new, they look for new ways to manipulate and to change the space. So you can imagine the INEC when stomach infrastructure became a thing. If you remember the Ekiti election, that was where 2018. That was when vote buying became, like a major trend in the elections. And one of the things INEC said was, okay, no one should go to the voting cubicle with their phones, because what INEC observed, or what observers also shared, were people thumbprint, take a picture as evidence to showcase before they collect their money. Now, this was introduced to no phones at the voting cubicle. Setup will be done in a way to preserve the secrecy of the ballot. What did we begin to see? If you were in Ekiti and Osun last year, if you don't look well, you won't know vote buying is happening. But when you look well with the eyes of wisdom, then you'd see that people vote, and there's someone who is, checking in, and then there's a location you see people vote, and then they go there, they have like a meeting, then they come out smiling, and you're wondering what's so exciting about this. What are we seeing? That as INEC tries to secure the secrecy of the ballot, as security deploys, politicians look for new ways to undermine the integrity of the process. But what we're learning is, if the process wasn't getting credible, vote buying wouldn't be a trend. Why? If you remember, as far back as 2007, 2003, what happened was people get monies, pay an INEC official to write results. People get monies, pay one person monies to get results written. But when the process started becoming a bit more transparent, they decided to democratize these monies. That, if one person can no longer change it, then maybe we target those who would vote, so that when the votes are being counted, the votes that are counted are the votes that are bought. And what is the lesson for us as a people? Because I believe that when the political class struggles to adapt to change, it's only the people that can force them to adapt to change by adopting a posture that supports democratic development. And how can we force them to adapt to change? These elections, we have a new electorate that empowered INEC now to deploy technology for accreditation of voters, for electronic transmission of results. What does this mean? That without your accreditation, your biometric accreditation, and that is your fingerprints or facials or your PVC, and PVC being verified, you will not be allowed to vote. So before, smart card reader, people would choose not to use it. But now the law has said if the BVAS is not used, there will be no results for that polling unit, or the election will be suspended till the following day or till when a BVAS comes in. So it's no longer an option to say, oh, we don't want to use the BVAS, we don't like it. Now it must be used. And if it is going to be used, it means that it will now be one person, one vote. But voters need to understand that that is where the power is now, that your vote can count. You need to come out to vote. And the last point is, if the results are uploaded on the result portal, it also means that the challenge we had with collation, when magic happens from polling units to ward collation, that level of magic will be limited. Why? If results are uploaded from polling unit to the INEC result portal, and voters can even begin to download from the comfort of their homes, whoever changes the figure to the point of collation, where it is required that at collation they must confirm with the electronic transmitted one and the physical and the manual one to be sure they are both accurate and they are both similar results. If it doesn't happen, there's discrepancy and there's a problem with that. Now, if these are introduced, or rather this would be implemented on Saturday, it shows that the people now have the power to demand the system to work. The only question is, are we willing to vote without selling our vote, one, and are we willing to provide oversight over the process in a peaceful manner?
And that's a big question, a good one. And if we might just add that to a matter on the sidelines, speaking of stomach infrastructure, that might be extremely difficult this time around because, well, there's a cash crunch. Yeah. The cash isn't there. And for those who would rather file somewhere and come out smiling, the transfers are not even doing any better. But it takes us to the people.
Yes.
Now, if the politicians are forever looking for ways to manipulate the system, yes, what about the voters? Have the Nigerian voting public learned any lessons? Have they learned any lessons? The matter of stomach infrastructure, knowing that you take a pittance to sell your votes, yeah, and then you're stuck for 4 years.
Yes. Well, we are thinking that with the challenge on ground, though it's not a challenge, but people call it challenge, and we see it as a challenge. But I think, and I used to say it, although we may talk about poor implementation, but it's coming at a time that even if the voters don't want to change, the system will force them to change, just the way INEC is forcing the politicians to change. And let me say that the problem of Nigerian democracy is not even the politician, it's the people. We the people, how on earth will I accept 4 sachets of Indomie in 200 naira to mortgage the future of my children for 4 years? Or that I accept 3 million to buy a car that the politicians will not provide the road for me to drive on? Or I accept 10 million to buy a car that I can no longer fuel after the election? You see, it has to do with the priority of the people. If the people want change, they will see change. If they don't want change, they won't see it. Let me give you an example. You go to Bauchi State. As the governor, they tell you, we're going to vote you out. If you like, bring whatever you have. Heaven and earth, your savings, they are going to change you. You go to Kano State, you go to some of the states in Nigeria, they will tell you they are going to change you. No matter the power of incumbency, use whatever you want to use. That is the power of determination. There's a will that cannot be stopped by anything, not even cash. But we are so low in our thinking to the extent that somebody will tell you, if I vote for candidate A, the person will not win. If I vote, I will not see them again. Whatever I can get, let me just get it. Then you empower somebody that will ruin you, ruin your family, and then you continue to lament insecurity and bandit, and then you want us to contribute money to free your father, your mother, the same people that brought the insecurity because they refused to do the right things, either as a voter, either as an observer, either as a security person, or any. You see, so it's a collective responsibility. But what we are saying is, this influence of money in Nigerian politics is something that has been there right from time immemorial. In 1922, it used to be ethnicity to independence. And if you read Okudibat Noli, he talked about the use of ethnicity to mobilize voters. But by the time we came down to independence, and then we have our own people contesting election, it graduated from using ethnicity to the use of cloth, salt, and we continue to use that up to the point that rigging became so manifest that somebody will tell you, look, nobody is going to defeat us this election, we've won it, and then they will tell you they are going to win by a landslide, and they will mobilize resources, do everything. In fact, if a disciplined police officer, they transfer you before the election because you are going to become a cog in the wheel. And then the state governor will tell you, this resident electoral commissioner that you brought is not going to play games. Now, those persons distancing themselves from the state governor to say, I'm a professional, I'm here to conduct my activities as a professional, and then I have nothing to. So that is why you are not seeing politicians now donating operational vehicles to police as it used to be before. Previously, once it is close to election, they would donate operational vehicles, and then they will make a lot of it on NTA, on all the network. Now, that is gradually. So they are concentrating on the people. And that is why this vote buying is becoming endemic. I remember there was this election in FCT. They started paying 2,000 naira. Before the close of polls, they were paying voters 15,000 naira because the stake was higher. The margin was not much, so they needed to ensure that they win. So the vote buying that we're talking about is a reaction to the tightening of the system to the extent that they cannot penetrate INEC, they cannot penetrate the security. But let us commend this set of National Assembly members that are leaving. They did a very good job. Previously, before elections, they amend electoral laws and allow lacunas that can be used in the courts to win their cases. So this very particular introduction of beavers was a closure. So for them to have even passed the law, to have agreed to pass the law, I think we should commend them because they knew, a lot of them knew that they are going to lose the election. Then the second thing that we need to say here is INEC, even the security agencies, for detaching themselves from the political parties. Look, if you look at what happened in 2015 and 2019, most of the election cases that were decided in the courts were pre-election cases, not the actual election cases. And even up to the lead up to the election, it was still pre-election cases. So another weakest link in our democracy is the political parties. They tell INEC it's none of your business to interfere in our internal activities. But it is INEC that will be forced 24 hours before the election to put a party on the ballot, which will affect the logistics of INEC and the entire planning. It happened the last election. So, and then judiciary too. That is another area, that is another challenge. Most of the things we are beginning to witness now is that after INEC must have declared candidates as winners based on the tabulation of votes, whether rightly or wrongly, now the electoral politicians are very peculiar, and they are operating a thesis that has been there since 1990s. There is a popular politician from the north that usually gives directives to his lieutenant and said, look, how much do you require to deliver the party? If you say 20 million, it gives you 40 million. And as soon as you are leaving, it tells you, rig and be taken to court because we can sort ourselves in the court. But don't allow yourself to be rigged out. Because if they rig you out, it will be very difficult to prove it in the court. But now court cases are coming with some semblance of credibility because you have the beavers that it is central to the election. It's either you are accredited and you vote, or if you vote without accreditation, by the time it goes to the court. So it will even force the judiciary to do the right things. If not, we'll continue to witness INEC will declare candidate A as the winner based on the tabulation of votes. We get to the court will now, most of the victories are now coming from the court, but I'm sure with the beavers now, we are going to pass that stage.
All right. Well, In addition to the conversation in the studio, we have a number of reports, and we have the first one lined up. This one is from Lagos.
Few days from now, Nigerians will be heading to the polls to exercise their franchise under the new Electoral Act. So much has already been put in place by the federal government and the electoral umpire to ensure not just a smooth process, but a free, fair, credible, and peaceful election. Registration and collection of permanent voter cards was successfully carried out across the country to ensure that no eligible voter is disenfranchised. INEC says it has achieved more than 90% of the process and is fully set for Saturday's poll.
We've been able to give out 6,708,451 to all eligible voters, and that one will give us 88% of collection of the PVC. So in Lagos State now, we have gotten all the beavers we need. We have gotten 13,325 and even backups for the beavers. So that is to show that we are ready for the election. And even our non-sensitive materials, we have gotten that.
The federal government is determined to ensure that the process is seamless and successful, while preparations are also in top gear with series of meetings with concerned organizations.
We need to begin to see strong presence of our agencies around polling centers, polling areas, to gain confidence by the people.
We are as good as done. So we are confident that the election security is going to be robust and it will guarantee free, fair and credible elections.
Nigerians who have been anticipating the success of the election expressed their expectations.
I wish good things to happen on Saturday.
I want more people to come out to vote on Saturday. What we need is free and fair election.
Meanwhile, political parties are still engaging electorates in nationwide campaign to win their support at the polls.
Right, that report from Lagos. Our next one comes from Kaduna. Let's get to see this one.
The regional election is expected to usher in a new government and will be the first national test for the 2022 Electoral Act as amended. It will also be the first time the Beavers machine intended to ease the electoral process and ensure credibility will be used for the general elections. Stakeholders postulate that this year's election will be the most keenly contested, with 4 frontline political parties vying for various positions due to their large following. Preparation for the forthcoming general election by the Independent National Electoral Commission has been adjudged to be in line with international best practices.
The Beaver machine are 99.9% accuracy because it's a user-friendly and it has, this time around, a whole register of a unit has been incorporated inside the Beaver's machine. So I believe any voter that is eligible to vote is inside the machine.
INEC have told Nigerians that they have made all preparations necessary to ensure that there is any logistic problem. But already we are seeing other variables coming into the scene that were not predicted earlier. So we don't know the extent to which it may affect the preparations of INEC logistically. This is in terms of the Naira redesign policy.
Expectations are high among the electorate on the outcome of the process.
Based on what I'm hearing and what I have observed, we are hoping that they will deliver the election successfully.
I want to vote because I want the country to be okay, because my vote will count. And if I do not vote, my vote will not count.
The election, I think, will be much more credible than before. Because when they are using ballot paper can be used otherwise.
Since we have good laws now, we expect sanity.
I think if we are able to get this election right, we will, cement democratization process, and also we will be a model.
Consensus among stakeholders and the electorate is that this year's elections will usher in a new era in the political process of the country.
Let the votes count, and for the voters, they need to get to their polling units and go through the necessary procedure, in order to cast their ballot. And then insist that their votes should count. But a number of voters have said, look, we've received messages from INEC. So I'd like the Director of Voter Education to clarify this. We received messages from INEC changing our polling units. Some of the messages have said you've been moved from this to the other one due to congestion. And but in these days, when all kinds of messages fly around, some people are worried. Is it truly INEC sending those messages, or someone has hacked into the system and is trying to take away the voters from where they should vote?
Truly, INEC will be sending messages to a number of voters in the country. It's not every voter.
Right.
Now, we can easily remember that we had less than 120,000 polling units before, but the Commission was able to create new polling units. More than 56,000 new polling units were created, bringing the total number of polling units in the country to 176,846. Now, because of that, we had to redistribute voters in particular locations. Because why did we create polling units in the first instance? We created polling units so that we could decongest all those units that had a heavy load. In terms of, you see a polling unit having about 5,000 voters. On election day, you see 5,000 people in a particular location. A lot of crowd. Our officials will be under so much pressure. The security agencies will be under so much pressure. And so we needed to stop that. And that about polling unit with 5,000 voters before, you now find a situation where we now have about 5 polling units that split into 5. And then, within the same location, we need to now redistribute the voters there properly. And so you find a situation where we move people and we feel obliged to inform them, so that on election day, they won't have to start walking up and down within their locality to start looking for their polling units. And that's why we started sending all those SMS messages. And anyone who received those messages will see that there's a relationship between the old polling unit and the new polling unit. We will say that your polling unit, your code we'll give you the code and the number. We'll tell you that you have now been moved to another polling unit. We'll give you the code. Maybe the number of your polling unit was 20 before. We have moved you to 30 now. And we'll tell you in the same location. When you see the message, you know it's from INEC. Because our messages are direct, they are targeted, and they are unequivocal. Apart from that, we've been encouraging people that you can also send SMS to INEC. You know, to INEC, we had particular numbers. And if you send SMS to us, we'll send you a message, we'll respond. And we also say, if you're computer savvy, you could go online, our website. We had a link, that is www.inecnigeria.org, where you could also log in, and you can get a response from us. So we're just trying to let people know that, you know, we've moved you, but not everybody.
Okay.
Those who moved. And apart from that, on election day, in all those locations, we will have an INEC official called Assistant Presiding Officer 3, whose job is to stay by the queue of that polling unit. And if you come, he will look at your PVC and ensure that that PVC is meant for that particular unit. And if the PVC is for another unit nearby, it will only just direct you to that unit. And when you go to that place, there will still be another Assistant Presiding Officer 3 that will receive you and also make sure you are for that place. So we are using quite a high number of personnel now. But as we said, we're grateful for the federal government supporting us with the funds to pay for all this personnel, so that nobody will really have any problem on election day.
All right. Well, at this point, we'll take a short break. When we return, we'll go into the segment where you can now join in the conversation in the studio And we'll also explore other matters and review certain other aspects of the general election upcoming, just a few days away. So stay with us at NTA Tuesday Live. We'll be back shortly.
Track standard gauge railway to be built in West Africa. The Mobolaji Johnson train station is a masterpiece, an infrastructure that is gradually becoming an iconic building in Lagos State. The modern facilities put the station on a world map of train stations. Likewise, other new train stations across the country built to world-class standards. The train and its convenience is indeed an admirable effort, with commendations from Nigerians.
This is a station that we have to commend the federal government for putting a beautiful face, empowering us in Lagos State, not only in economic and political arena.
I can say that I'm really impressed with the infrastructures in place. Kudos to the Minister of Transportations. Kudos to the federal government.
Truly, good things are coming out of Nigeria, and the federal government is deserving of all the applause. NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Thanks for staying with us. Now we're at that segment where you can join in the conversation in the studio. The numbers are going to be on your screen, and we encourage you to take advantage of them and call in. But we say this every Tuesday. If you're calling in tonight and your call gets through to the studio, do us a favor, turn down the volume of your TV set. That's the way to avoid the hurlback or the echo. And we also encourage you to go straight to the point. Keep it short and simple so others can also get on the platform. Don't spend too much time on the greetings. Just a simple hello. And go ahead with whatever comments or questions you have. Our guests would respond to them appropriately. So it's all about safeguarding the electoral process. And we start up this segment with another of our reports. This one is from Port Harcourt.
The much-awaited 2023 general election is finally here. As 4 days from now, eligible voters across the country will be expected to exercise their franchise. The electoral umpire, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, security agencies and other stakeholders say they have concluded plans to conduct the general elections beginning this Saturday. They are reassuring Nigerians that there is no cause for alarm. Are in place to ensure a hitch-free election.
Training of all the supervisory presiding officers have been concluded. We have commenced the movement of non-sensitive materials to the local government areas in the states. Configuration and charging of all the beavers is ongoing.
We will provide security for the INEC officials and the ad hoc staff, safeguarding the election materials, both sensitive and insensitive.
We are fully prepared for this general election, and the Commissioner of Police Rivers State has gone around to lecture our men. 10,337 personnel that has been posted.
These assurances are no doubt paying off, as some residents of Port Harcourt, in their reactions, express enthusiasm towards the elections. They are confident that preparations already made by relevant agencies, which will be involved in the conduct of the election commencing Saturday, has built confidence in the electorates.
This state is riverine, as we all know, but we pray that God will make a way to overcome these challenges we can see ahead. We also hope the internet has been quite bad in the last few weeks. So I pray that on Saturday the internet will perform much better and the beavers machines will function well so that we can have a free and credible election.
In the build-up to the 2023 elections, here we have few weeks to the elections. We have cash issues we have petroleum product availability issues.
We are ready. I have my voter's card here in my pocket. So I'm ready. I will walk out from my house, go to the polling booth, and vote by conscience. I go back to my house.
They, however, charge INEC to do the needful towards ensuring that electoral materials get to the hinterlands and other rural communities to ensure they are not disenfranchised.
All right, that report from Port Harcourt. Our next one is coming from Enugu. Let's get to see that one.
I think election is all about coming out to vote on the election day, of preparing and safeguarding the electoral process, which ends with the swearing in of the winners. Issues to be looked into include logistics, like collating and distribution of both sensitive and non-sensitive materials from the federal down to the polling units across the country. Over the years, voters had to wait for hours before casting their votes. Enugu has 4,145 polling units in 260 registration areas. Across 17 local governments, how prepared is INEC for the election in Enugu State?
The system and what we are doing here in Enugu and across other sister states, I think and I believe that INEC is ready for the election.
Security is another vital component in the electoral process. The situation in the southeast is peculiar. A cursory look at the INEC Enugu State Office gives an inkling into the level of preparedness, as the entire premises have been fortified to avert any security threat that might disrupt the election.
Command, the police, working with other sister security agencies, we are very, very ready. We encourage people to go out and vote. This is when they have their own rights. They have the power, they have the capacity to express whatever it is they feel about the government. This is the only time they have to prove that they also have a say fully in the scheme of things in the country, because you're exercising your right as a person. So we encourage them to go about the electioneering period, to go out and cast their vote, and rest assured they will be covered with maximum security.
With the passage of the new Electoral Act 2022, Nigerians are optimistic that the 2023 general elections, especially with the use of the bimodal voter accreditation system, BVAS, will usher in a more credible, free and fair election since 1999.
All right, that report from Enugu. The voters are ready, and looks like everything is in place. And what is left is for those who would take part in this exercise to familiarize themselves with what they should do and to be aware of the process. Again, I'll return to the INEC director here. It's upcoming. We're talking about safeguarding the process. So I am a voter, and on Saturday I wake up and pick up my voter's card, go straight to the polling unit, identify my unit. What happens from then on? How am I expected to conduct myself? What am I expecting to happen to me within the period I'm there? And let's take it from there. See.
Yeah, it's a very clear process. It's clear and simple. As a voter, we're telling all voters in the country anyway, that you must come with your PVC. Because without the PVC, you cannot even access the polling unit at all. If you don't have your PVC and you come to the polling unit, well, the presiding officer can order the security man to take you away. So you come to the polling unit with your PVC. When you get to the polling unit, of course, an INEC official will welcome you, will check your PVC to be sure that you are at the right polling unit. Once that is done, you make progress. Another INEC official will check to make sure that, yes, your name is on the register, make sure that all those details on your PVC correspond with what's on the register. Then, of course, you'll be qualified to relate with the BVAS. Now, what the BVAS does is to authenticate, that is your fingerprint. And if the authentication of fingerprint fails, you use official. And one thing, of course, my colleague there mentioned it earlier, that the whole details of voters for a particular unit will be configured in the beavers for that unit. So what it means is that, and that's different between the beavers and the old smart card that we were using. The smart card did not have those details inside it. It was the PVC that had those details. And that was why we had problems. Once we could not accredit you, we could not authenticate you through your fingerprint, we had to use incident form, which people abused. And of course, when they were abusing it, they didn't know that INEC will go back and come with a system that will make it somehow foolproof. So once you are authenticated, either by your fingerprint or by your facials, then the presiding officer will, of course, give you a ballot paper. It's a very simple process. You get your ballot paper, then you move into the cubicle, you thumb print. You thumb print, will tell you to thumb print correctly so that your choice will be clear. Once you thumb print, then you proceed and drop the ballot paper in the cubicle. And once you do that, you majestically walk away. If you like, you can stay around to witness maybe end of voting, to witness the sorting and the counting. If you like, you go home. It's a very simple process which we made it so easy for people so that the whole voting should not take long at all. And the authentication process, the accreditation process, should not even take more than a minute. Okay. It's a very fast process. So, and on election day, we are saying people should just be calm, join the queue if there's a queue. If there's no queue, good. You just go in straight, vote, and go. If there's a queue, you join the queue, you be patient. Your turn will come. You will vote for the candidate of your choice, and all will be well.
Okay, we'll return to that, but I think we have our first caller tonight. I was calling in from Port Harcourt. Right.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. Good evening.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah. Good evening. Hello. Are you hearing me?
Abbas from Port Harcourt.
Yes. Abbas from Port Harcourt. Please, my question goes to the INEC.
Well, it's possible that they can hear you from the controls, but here in the studio I can't hear you, so we'll have to work on that. Abbas from Port Harcourt, if you're on the line, I wonder if they can hear you in the control room right there. But I can't hear you clearly at all. Except that there's a hitch with that call that's coming through. Hello, Abbas.
Hello.
All right, we'll move on, and I hope that we'll get other calls coming through to the studio here so we can discuss it. But then let's come back to the DIG operations and the conduct of both electoral staff and voters is key here in maintaining law and order. At what point do the security agencies, of course the police is the lead agency here, at what point will the security agents intervene if there is a sign or likelihood of a breakdown of law and order in those polling units?
Thank you. Let me give the environment itself first. The environment that we have seen that day is that there will be security agencies posted in all polling booths. The routes will be manned by the military, most usually the exit routes and access routes. Then at the polling booths, which is even known to the electoral law, when offenses are committed, it is the INEC official who determines what is an offense. And the policemen or the security agencies that are within the polling area, they are to assist the INEC officials.
Okay, so
when matters are reported to them, they take action.
They'll wait for a report from the INEC official.
Yes.
Okay, we'll return to that in just a moment. Let's see if we can get this call through. Emmanuel calling in from Lagos. Hello, Emmanuel. Go ahead.
Yes. Good evening, sir.
Hello, Emmanuel, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me, please?
Right, go ahead with your question or comment.
It's all right. My question is this. At the polling units, there used to be some people that will be there, and they are touts. They have nothing to do around the polling unit. What is the arrangement or the plans of the INEC on how to do away with such people within the polling unit so that it won't be too rowdy? That is my questions.
All right. Thank you very much. Straightforward.
Yes,
People who have no business being at the polling unit, they probably do not have their PVCs. They don't want to vote. Why? Can they just hang around there?
No, they shouldn't hang around. They should not hang around there. Those that are expected within the polling units, the INEC officials. When we say INEC officials, the presiding officer and the assistant presiding officers, they are the ones actually conducting the election. Then you have the party agents. Every political party that's contesting the election in that particular constituency is entitled to have party agents, one per party. They're expected to be in the polling unit. The security agencies are expected to be in the polling unit. Now, the media are expected to come, cover, and go. The observers are expected maybe to come, look in, and go. Now, anybody, and then the voters are supposed to come, maybe be on the queue. If there's a queue, there's no queue, they vote and go. Now, voters, if they want to stay and watch proceedings, they can stay, I think, 200 meters within the radius of the polling unit. We don't expect anybody that has voted already to still stay within the polling unit. Because once you vote, you finish your business in the polling unit. You can move, that is within 200 meters, and stay if you want to watch the sorting and counting later. So any other person that has no business being in the polling unit and is there is an interloper. And the presiding officer has the powers and the right to invite the police or the security agencies around to remove that person.
All right, just to clarify, at least media and observers, of course, would be wearing their identification tags. So I'm sure what Emmanuel was referring to would be people who are neither media practitioners nor observers, who are just loafers, as you describe them. We have another call from Delta. Francis calling in from Delta. Hello, Francis. Go ahead.
Yeah, my question goes to the security agency.
All right.
Yeah, the officer there said there are going to be 2 policemen being mounted at the polling booth. And you found out that in some polling units, you have about 3 units there, or 4. How will 2 policemen mount the 4 polling units in a particular place, and which you know that there will be crowd? So I want them to give us more security agencies to mount those areas. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Francis from Delta. Yes, DIG.
Francis from Delta. Like we're assuring you, that we're going to have at least 2 security agencies, members of the security agencies in each polling booth. And if there's a cluster of polling booths, which means it translates to cluster of policemen. If there are 6 polling booths located in, let's say, a school, which means that we are going to have close to nothing less than about 6 times 2. But there's something I want to employ members of the public. We should note, very important, in any civilized world, you don't need to be strongly policed before you do the right thing. It is our thing. We are the people that want to vote. We should behave and let the job of the security agencies be easy.
All right, another call coming through from Akwa Ibom this time. Yes, hello.
Hello?
Yes, go right ahead, and just give your first name. You're calling in from Akwa Ibom, right?
Good evening.
Yes,
my name is Daniel, calling from Aquarium.
Right, go ahead.
Okay, my question is, at your polling unit, when you have a political leader like maybe the governor of the state is from that same polling unit, and you, the voter, go to that polling unit to vote, you need to vote the party that the governor is supporting. Without that, you cannot vote. What is the plan about that, the security about that? Because like what happened in the last election, when I went to my polling unit, I wanted to gas in my vote to the person I support, but I couldn't do that because people were watching, telling me to vote this particular party. What is the plan about things like that?
Okay. So this is a question for INEC.
I think he actually was talking about a governor coming to the polling unit, maybe with a crowd of supporters, a crowd of party members. Well, I said it before. A governor that day is a voter. If he has people within that particular ward where the unit is located, that are also coming to vote with him. They come to vote and then they leave. If he has the security aides that are also with him, the governor is entitled to security aides. The security aides are expected to stay within the perimeter
Yes,
of the...
but do they come, maybe you have to explain where the aids are meant to be.
Well, the security aids, I think the DIG will have to explain the way the security aids will move. I'm not a security man, but I know that the governor is a voter. That day, we expect the governor to come in, vote, and then leave.
Most probably the governor or the top official will have a police orderly around, and we want to know just how far should that orderly go, as they do right behind the official, the personality, when he's been accredited. Is he meant to be right there, or when they move to the to cast their ballot?
In that situation, before now, we've been able to scale down, because we even, as we speak, we need men. Men have been taken away from these important dignitaries. And we've even announced that on election day, voters, including dignitaries who are voters too, are not allowed to go about with their security aids. And by my own thinking, a governor of a state, if he goes to vote, with our situation in Nigeria, I think even you see the retinue of pressmen. It's just like the president or any governor going to vote in a particular place. I don't see a governor of a state misbehaving like a polling booth. There will be pressmen, there will be observers, because it's a thing, it's symbolic. People will want to be there to witness it. I think Daniel's fear shouldn't be much.
Well, it probably is worried about subtle intimidation by the number of security personnel who might surround a top official. That might scare some people, really. But as long as there is, a certain limit to how close they can get. INEC has said, no, it's just the voter who goes into that booth to thumbprint and cast their ballot. So just to avoid a situation where some overzealous security personnel would determine that maybe there's a large crowd here and maybe thinking that, his principal might be in some form of danger or something like that. And that's the excuse that's given all the time. So perhaps it's best to determine just how far they can go. Sometimes you've had altercations between these security agencies and the voters who insist that, look, you can't go beyond this point. We are all voters here. And sometimes that's how trouble begins at a polling unit.
But I think we need to state clearly that governors and top dignitaries normally vote within their localities.
Yes.
And for what we have seen, it's never really problematic anyway, because you see a situation where there are people are there, maybe within the particular towns or villages. They always return to their localities to come vote. There are people out there. There will be, as the AG said, there will be the media to cover it, to see the governor. Even when the governor wants to drop the ballot paper in the ballot box, you see him looking at the cameras to be sure that they are covering it and before he drops. So it's a little bit ceremonial. But what we are saying is, the governor comes in, he votes, then he leaves. He goes home to go and attend to other issues. After all, voting on election day will not be the only thing the governor will be doing. The other state issues he will be attending to, just like other dignitaries too.
We have also seen cases where dignitaries, and this is not matter, we're not referring specifically to governors or the president, we even have local council officials under the guise of inspecting, units to see things are going on. And we have seen that. I mean, we've covered elections and we've seen that happen where people go with a retinue of aides under the guise of inspecting the process. And in the real sense of it, they are disrupting the process.
But on election day, there's restriction of movement. We don't allow, unless people that are accredited to move about. The people that the security agencies that are located in strategic areas will definitely stop them from moving about. The dignitaries are not allowed to go. If you vote, you go back to your place of abode.
All right, the calls are coming through. From where is this call coming from?
From our state.
Or your state? Yes, go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I have this question for the INEC officer.
Okay.
My question is this. For casting my vote on the election as a voter, I have the former voter card. There was an error. I made attempts of correcting it, which was not done. Will the old one still be recognized?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Yes, I had my voter card.
Right.
Which had an error. I made an attempt to correct it, but I couldn't. So my question is, if being a former card, it will not be rejected by the voter machine.
Well, he didn't tell us the type of error.
He said, well, all right. What kind of error is on your voter's card? Could you just explain that so the INEC official can respond to that? So there was an error. What kind of error, if you specify?
Yes, there was my date of birth. There was an error with my month of birth. So I made a attempt of correcting that, but I could not get the new card. When I went to the INEC office, it was not coming out. So I wanted to know, I want to be sure if the old one will still be useful, so that they won't tell me I have double information.
Well, it's quite clear. During CVR, when we encourage people to come out, if you want to transfer, you can transfer. If you want a replacement of your card, you can ask for replacement of card. That is if that card is defaced, is spoiled, or maybe you lost your card. Now, we also said if you wanted to change some of your data, like as you were saying, maybe you were not married before, you're not married, you're now married, you're missing something, you need to change all those details. We encourage people to come up. Now, if he wanted to change his date of birth and he was not successful, that means there was no alteration to the original data, that his original details in our data. So the card is still valid. After all, he will still go back to his polling unit and still present the card. His name is there, his VIN number is there, so he can vote. He doesn't have any problem.
Using the same details.
Yes, the same details, he can vote.
Not attempting to...
So maybe to also add, because for him to have what they call peace of mind, he can go on the INEX portal now, voters.inecnigeria.org. So voters.inecnigeria.org. Just go put in your name. It asks for some questions. Just put in the details and be sure your name is on the register. I think that would give him peace of mind.
All right, I'm sure Victor will be very grateful to you for for helping him out there with that. Right. Okay, so we keep the calls coming through, and I guess here we'll respond to such issues as you might raise. But then there's still also the matter. I keep going back to the electorate, the people themselves. And I'm saying this based on reports that we have seen from all parts of the country, and thinking that this is a time when voters are expected to conduct themselves the best behavior at the polling units. It doesn't always end up that way. Now, I'd like Abu Hamisu to comment about this. A lot of people are going into these elections with a lot of frustrations and anger, and quite a number of citizens have a short fuse for so many other reasons which we might not mention here now. And it takes only a tiny spark to blow out.
Yeah.
What do you say to that?
Well, unfortunately, no matter how short is our fuse, we will end up stabbing ourselves on the stomach. What did we gain from the post-election violence of 2011? What did we gain? Nothing. For instance, the vandalization of banks and ATM machines in Edo State. Even if they supply cash to Edo State, where are they going to put it? On the street? You see, one thing that is lacking in Nigeria is self-governance. And self-governance comes with your ability to think positively and take positive decisions. Because if you think you are hurting federal government, you are going to pay the money that will be used to rebuild that road that you are going to destroy. That INEC building you're going to destroy. We'll be destroying all of this. What did we get from it? We're only setting the country backward. It won't change anything. Yes, INEC will say they've cancelled that very particular location or the polling unit. And they will tell you that it will not substantially affect the outcome. So what you've done is to disenfranchise your people. Because the margin for winning votes now is not mudslide, it's not landslide. We've seen where somebody won an election with just 300 votes, 200 votes, less than 200 votes. So if you want a participatory process and all is in place to ensure that your vote counts, why should you go there and disrupt it? But we know human beings. The way we reason is if I cannot get it, nobody else should get it. But in doing that, you should know that you are really pulling the country backward, and that you are not empowering your people, and that you are disenfranchising your people. And ultimately, it bounces back at you and your community. Not INEC, not federal government, not even the senator or the House of Representatives member that you want to work against or that you want to work for. So democracy is about peaceful conduct, and it does not require violence. Once we have violence, it's no longer democracy. And this violence is introduced deliberately. So if you know that you are the winning side and somebody wants to introduce violence, then you should have a rethink by inviting the security personnel to say, come do your job, because it takes two to tango. If you don't provide the person the opportunity by responding, then there will be no spark. But if you want to do it the way we used to do it in Nigeria, okay, if you want violence, we can give you violence. This is not what we want. The security agencies are there. If somebody is fomenting trouble, call them peacefully and point to the person and say, look, this person is likely going to truncate the process, and they will take care of the person appropriately. If we do this, then we will have a peaceful conduct. But if we now say, okay, because you are wielding stakes, I'm going to bring my own stake, then you are now going to create a situation where the security operatives will be overwhelmed because they will have two parties to contend with. But if this person is making trouble and then you are not making trouble, you are there to ensure that the process works peacefully, then you call the security. So it boils down to the conduct of the electorate more than the conduct of either the INEC officials or the police officers or the media. So it is we, the citizens, that we give ourselves peaceful election. We cannot be mad at the same time.
Well, which also brings into scrutiny security. I mean, this is not unusual sometimes. Friction between security agencies and the people, especially at the polling units. And this is where, well, let's just hope everything goes on smoothly. That will come back to Victor later on to talk about how smooth the process will be. But it's been known to happen, friction between security agencies and the people. So again, this speaks to the level of training and level-headedness of security agencies, sometimes in dealing with people who are on, as they say, high charge.
For months now, we've been having sensitizations, trainings, and most of these trainings were organized internally. Some were organized by INEC, and it's always been joint trainings with our sister agencies. As at yesterday, we had one at the International Conference Center. We've always been working together. And note, on election day, there's going to be a joint operational room. In the joint operational room, you have the presence of all the security agencies. For election purpose, I don't see the reason why there can be friction. You know, I told you earlier on that it's the INEC that will call the shot. Our men are going to be put under the INEC officials who will tell them this is what to do. So if the INEC official says it is left, definitely all the security agencies will go into the left. If they say it is right, we'll be going to the right. It's not a situation where you, on your own, use your discretion to say this is an offense when the INEC official is saying it's not an offense.
We look at beyond just the casting of the ballots, and we go to the question of collation. Yes, uploading on the INEC portal might be just a way where the electorate can keep abreast of everything happening. But again, there's still the other human angle to it. Technology has provided us with this way out. But again, the technology does not take care of the individual biases and feelings. Candidate A is my candidate, or candidate B is my candidate, or candidate C, and I'm beginning to see the writing on the wall that it's not happening. And of course, disappointment moves to discontent, and discontent moves somewhere else. How do you deal with that when you begin to announce the results?
Well, I think we try our best to prepare the minds of Nigerians, to prepare the minds of politicians for the eventualities, because we are saying now it's going to be one man, one vote. Voter impersonation, multiple voting will not happen because of the beavers we are going to use. Unlike before, when people abused the use of the smart card reader, abused the use of incident forms. Now, no one can vote twice in his polling unit. Nobody can use another person's card to vote. So so that one will first remove the tendency for politician A to believe the other politician will cheat him, and so he wants to checkmate the other person. Now that one is gone. It's a level playing ground. Secondly, when the results are ready, and we transmit the results to our result viewing portal. It's a measure of transparency. It gives everybody confidence that nobody will be able to change that result between the polling unit and the World Collation Center. So a politician will have the confidence that another politician will not be able to write results and bring those results into the system. So there's an element of confidence among all persons, among all parties. That itself has a psychological effect on the whole process.
Okay. Just two quick issues arising from this. Does this take care of underage voting, as we have known before? Because it's what has been input. I mean, it's the input that, you know, it results.
No underage person will vote in any of our polling units during the elections. I assure you, no underage persons. Because if somebody is, actually in our register, there is no child in our register. There is no underage persons in our register. When people come and they queue up to vote, if there's anybody that is underage, in fact, everybody will see, and that person will be removed. In fact, I don't think anybody will have the confidence to come to a polling unit to come and vote if that person is not of age.
A second quick issue too. Does it take care of the question of announcement under duress? We've seen that happen. And someone says, look, I made this under duress.
No, that will not happen again because, you know, one of the good amendments to the Electoral Act is the section that gives us the power, gives INEC the power to review within a number of days declarations that are made under duress. We had a situation before during the 2019 election where one of our returning officers, who was returning a well-known senatorial election, you know, had to return under terrible duress. You know. Sometimes when your life and well-being is at stake, we advise you to first safeguard yourself. And of course, we learned a lot from that. And during the amendment to the Electoral Act, the section was inserted that gives us the power to review within a number of days such declarations that are made under duress. And let me tell you, nowadays, things are a little bit easier. The days of smartphones, people can record many things, and we have personnel, officials, who will be supervising the election a lot. Apart from the electoral officer, the assistant electoral officer, the presiding officers, the supervising presiding officers, we will also have INEC staff that will be supervising registration areas that we call wards, that will be supervising local government areas. We have all their phone numbers, and we'll be able to reach out to all of them if we hear anything. And if they are seeing anything and hearing anything, they can also reach out to us. In fact, we've announced to the public that on election day, we'll now have a short code, 4632, on election day. If you dial that number, it takes you to the INEC Citizens Contact Center in the Situation Room in Abuja. And you can lay a complaint. And from there, we will call the person supervising that ward. We will call the electoral officer. We will even be able to call the DPO of that local government, because the police too will be giving us the numbers of the DPOs. So nothing is secret now. Nobody can do anything that we will not see. Okay. So anybody that tries to force anybody to declare him under duress will live to regret it.
Could you just go through that once more, the short code you talked about?
No, I said that we have a short code.
Yes, just
INEC has a short code.
Yes.
4632.
That's
good. If you dial that code, it takes you straight to the INEC Citizens Contact Center at the Situation Room in Abuja, because we are establishing a Situation Room for the election. That Situation Room will have the INEC chairman at the center, with the commissioners, with directors, you know, with call agents. And if you dial, let's say you call that number from Kayama in Bayelsa, right on the sea, you know, or from Brass. If you call that number, it takes you to the station room. We will be able to take in your complaint, and we will call the person supervising that place. We'll call the electoral officer. We'll be able to relate with any of our people on ground. And so whoever plans to get himself declared under to get declared the wrong way, it will not just work this time. I can assure Nigerians that such things will not happen.
Fine. Just by the way, this call talked about is toll-free, is it?
Toll-free.
Toll-free. Yes, we needed to clarify that.
Toll-free.
Okay, so we'll keep that in mind. Well, we just have a few more minutes on this program, and we'll devote the closing minutes to go over what we have talked about here once again, and look at all the angles towards safeguarding the electoral process. And let's start off this time with Dr. Abdurrahman Abu Hamisu. Saturday is by the corner, literally, and Nigerians are going to go out. First, do you expect, from what's been happening, do you expect to see a higher number of voters in this election than we've been seeing in the past? That's one aspect of it. And it's going around that people are now more politically aware and savvy than they were. Do you agree with that? And the numbers we have registered, are we likely to see Nigerians now saying, look, I know my vote will count this time around?
Okay. I think I'm a little bit skeptical, not because voters are not highly mobilized, not because the stakes are not very high, not because INEC has not done its job, not because security agencies have not given us all the assurances. I'm skeptical because the dividends of democracy that Nigerians are hoping for has not really have that impact on them. When you take issues of insecurity and the rest that has happened, the cash crunch, and then the movement that we used to see previously, people traveling home to go vote, we're not seeing those kind of movement now, either as a result of insecurity or because there is no cash and everything has to be done through the banks, and the banks are paying 1,000 naira over the counter, the ATMs are not working. So we're seeing this as possible factors. Then the other trend again, in 1999 when we started voting, I think it was around 53% and now 52%. And in 2019 is around 43% or so, 34 point something. So we're seeing downward trends, and this downward trend can be attributed to a lot of issues that has nothing to do with INEC preparation, but the implementation of our own democracy that has brought more poverty and the rest. So if people do not go out to vote, I could say that it is a protest against the operationalization of our democracy that has not really given people the kind of development they want to see, the kind of welfare they want to see, than INEC not doing its job or security agencies not doing a lot to really have people have confidence in the process. So for me, these are the two dimensions that that I looked at these issues and I became a little bit skeptical that maybe we may not. But if you talk about mobilization, the political parties have done that. I just want to add something quickly. My brother from INEC, you see, the Osun State election in the court pronouncement from the tribunal, I'm sure INEC must have done a review because if INEC, with the Beavers too, issues around overvoting can creep in that is being sorted by, so it tells us the ingenuity of the politicians in the kind of the mind we have as Nigerians to abuse the process, as we said earlier on. Because as INEC is working to ensure that it is a step ahead of these guys, they too are working to ensure that whatever you bring, it is injured from within, and then it will affect the integrity of not even INEC, but the new innovation. So I'm sure that angle is taken care of. I think if you should be able to tell us about it and to make people have confidence the more in the process.
All right, Cynthia, I think there could still be elements of voter apathy.
Yes, I still believe that, and I think I would buttress the points Hamisu made around the lack of confidence, not because the process is not getting better, but because people feel they are not feeling the dividends of democracy. Because post-2019, we did a voter turnout study, and one of the reasons for people not turning up was not even insecurity. It was they felt government has not delivered the promises, so why vote? Because my voting has not brought changes to my life. However, I think I want to change it, turn it the other around and speak to Nigerians and say there is no perfect system anywhere in the world, and democracies are not built in the sky. It's built by the people. If a system is not working for you, it doesn't mean you don't participate. There is no alternative to participating. So the idea of voting is that we come out to vote every 4 years to elect people at all levels: President, Senate, House of Reps, State Assembly, governors, because it's not just one election that we have. That we elect people that will represent our interests. If we keep staying away and saying, after all, nothing would happen, nothing would change, elections would always be determined by those few numbers of people that come out to vote. So for Nigerians, please, regardless of the hardship, come out in your numbers and vote. To change the outcome, we must increase turnout. We can no longer spend so much money to conduct elections and only 35% come out to vote. We need to increase our turnout.
Okay, thank you, DIG.
Mine will go first to members of the public. To tell them that we've done our deployments properly. Our airspace will be covered. The Nigerian Police Air Wing will be assisted by the Nigerian Air Force. The sea, we have the Marine section that will be ably assisted by the Nigerian Navy. Then on land, the number of policemen we have to be assisted by the Nigerian Army and other sister agencies. And coupled with it, we are going to activate our intelligence. We are going to activate our cybercrime unit. We are going to activate our Interpol tools. All these are more that we are going to put on ground. I'm assuring Nigerians that we are going to have a free and fair election. But at the same time, I say it again, Nigerians will cooperate with us. Like the former speaker said, the election is for us. We should learn to be civil. We should come out and vote. Let us have a credible, fair, and peaceful election.
Right. And final word from INEC in a couple of minutes.
Just to assure Nigerians, using the usual local phrase, there will be no wuru-wuru, there will be no magomago in this election.
Yeah. Right.
It will be one man, one vote. So let all voters with PVC come out en masse, vote on election day. If we achieve more than 70% turnout, then we'll be very happy.
All right, and it is on that note we must leave this conversation and thank our guests and say thank you very much. Director of Voter Education and Publicity, INEC, Victor Aluko, thank you so much for being here, and we appreciate you. Wish you all the best on Saturday.
Thank you so much.
Right. DIG Adeyinka Adeleke, MNI, Deputy Inspector General of Police Operations, thank you for being here.
I appreciate it.
In the next coming days, we will be relating with you as we go into the elections proper. Thank you so much. We appreciate your presence.
Thank you, sir.
Cynthia Mbamalu, Director of Programs, Yaga Africa. I know that you're deploying, you two are deploying, just like the security agencies are, to keep an eagle eye on the proceedings of these elections. Thank you for your thoughts.
Thank you.
And Dr. Abdurrahman Habu Hamisu, we expect to see you during the discussions during the elections. And so you were part of us in the last election, so we expect that you will be around and we'll tap some more of your knowledge on these matters. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Right. Thank you too for being with us. Next week we'll be back with NTA Tuesday Live. By then we would have seen what would have happened on Saturday and the build-up. So we'll see you then. I'm Cyril Stober. Continue to stay safe.